If you received a modest pay rise or a bonus this year, you probably felt like you were moving forward. But right now in the UK, millions of middle and higher earners are actually moving backwards, without a single tax rate officially going up. It's a phenomenon known as fiscal drag. And today, we're going to look at the exact maths showing why simply doing nothing is likely costing you over £5,000 this year alone. Normally, when we think of tax increases, we expect a big announcement from the Chancellor at the dispatch box. We expect headlines, debates, and voting in Parliament. But the most effective wealth stripping tool in the UK government's arsenal requires absolutely zero legislation. By simply freezing tax thresholds while wages naturally rise to combat inflation, the system quietly drags your income into higher brackets. It is a completely legal, completely silent redistribution of your wealth. To understand why this hits so hard, we have to look at the numbers we've all become accustomed to. For years, the UK personal allowance has been locked flat at £12,570, point at which you start paying the 40% higher rate, frozen at £50,270. If the economy stood completely still, this wouldn't be a problem. But the economy doesn't stand still. Wages rise. If your employer gives you a 5% raise to help you keep up with the rising cost of everyday goods, you feel like you're breaking even. HMRC sees that 5% as an entirely new taxable territory. Because those boundaries refuse to move with reality, millions of standard, hard-working professionals are being quietly transformed into higher rate taxpayers. For a long time, the narrative has been that the 40% tax bracket is reserved for the wealthy. But today, it catches out classroom teachers, senior nurses, and experienced tradespeople. When you are in the basic rate band, you pay 20% income tax. But the moment your salary crosses £50,270, every single extra pound you earn is hit with a 40% deduction. It is an immediate doubling of your tax rate. Now, technically, your national insurance drops from the standard main rate down to 2% on earnings above this threshold, which offers a small cushion. But the psychological and financial shock of watching nearly half of your hard-earned pay rise disappear into thin air is massive. Worse still, crossing this line unlocks a secondary penalty if you are a parent. Once your adjusted net income ticks past £60,000, you hit the high income child benefit charge. The government begins clawing back your child benefit at a rate of 1% for every 200 of income up to £80,000. If you have 2 or 3 children, this creates a brutal, invisible marginal tax rate between £60,000 and £80,000 that leaves middle earners feeling completely stuck. You work harder, you take on the promotion, and yet your bank account barely registers the effort. To see how this plays out in the real world, let's look at Dan. Dan is a project manager, married with 2 young kids. For years, he's been earning £55,000 a year. He's a basic rate taxpayer for the most part. His wife works part-time, and they receive the standard child benefit payments to help out with the weekly food shop and school uniforms. Then, Dan gets a brilliant new job offer, £70,000 a year. He's over the moon. He figures that extra £15,000 gross means roughly an extra £700 or £800 a month in his pocket after regular tax and national insurance. He signs the contract, orders a celebratory takeaway, and assumes everything is sorted out. But Dan has just crossed 2 invisible lines. First, he's firmly breached the basic rate threshold, meaning every pound he earns over roughly £50,000 is now taxed at a whopping 40%. But the real sting is the second line, the £60,000 mark. This is where the high income child benefit charge wakes up. Now let's be perfectly clear on the rules here in 2026. The government scales back your child benefit using a taper system. For every £200 you earn over £60,000, you have to pay back 1% of the total child benefit you received. Because Dan's new salary is £70,000, he is exactly £10,000 over that threshold. If you divide 10,000 by 200, you get 50. That means Dan's tax charge is exactly 50% of his family's total child benefit. Let's look at what that actually means in cold hard cash. For 2 children, the UK child benefit pays £27.05 a week for the eldest and £17.90 for the second. That scales up to roughly £2,337 a year. Because of that pay rise, Dan now owes HMRC a grand total of £1,168.50. Remember, it doesn't matter if the benefit money goes directly into his wife's bank account. Because Dan is the highest earner in the threshold, he is the one legally responsible for paying that money back through the tax system. This is where the maths gets genuinely depressing. When you layer the 40% income tax, the employee national insurance, and this 50% child benefit clawback on top of each other, you hit what economists call a hyper-elevated marginal tax rate. Let's look at that specific £10,000 chunk of Dan's pay rise between 60 and 70 grand. Out of that 10,000, £4,000 goes instantly to income tax. Another £200 is swallowed up by national insurance, and then he loses £1,168 of his family's child benefit via the tax charge. Add all that together, and out of that £10,000 pay rise, Dan only keeps £4,632. Think about that for a second. His effective tax rate on that hard-earned money isn't 40%, it's over 53%. He's giving more than half of his pay rise directly back to the state. And if Dan had 3 or 4 children, that effective tax rate climbs even higher, sometimes scraping towards 60 or 70%. But as painful as the 40% threshold is, it pales in comparison to the UK's ultimate hidden tax anomaly. It's a quirk in the legislation that you will never see published on an official HMRC tax table, yet it catches thousands of professional earners entirely off guard every single year. I'm talking about the £100,000 to £125,140 bracket, locally known as the 60% tax trap. The concept is deceptively simple. Once your adjusted net income ticks past £100,000, you begin to lose your tax-free personal allowance. For every £2 you earn over £100,000, you lose £1 of your £12,570 safety net. For employees caught in the personal allowance taper, the true marginal deduction rate is 62%. More than half of your extra effort belongs to the state. It gets worse if you have young children. The exact moment your income touches £100,000, your entitlement to the 30 hours of free childcare vanishes into thin air. It isn't tapered, it's an absolute cliff edge. A single £100 pay rise can literally trigger a £5,000 childcare bill overnight. Let's look at how this plays out in the real world. Meet David. He's a senior manager who has worked incredibly hard for a promotion, lifting his corporate income from $98,000 up to $110,000. On paper, David is celebrating a £12,000 win. He reckons this will sort out his family's holiday plans and give them some breathing room. Out of David's £12,000 reward, the higher rate tax and national insurance handle the first slice. At the moment he enters the trap zone, his personal allowance is eroded by £5,000, compounding the deduction. David loses £7,040 to the system. He keeps less than £5 grand. His true effective deduction rate across that rise sits at 58.67%. David also happens to lose his free childcare entitlement because of this move. His hard-earned career progression has actually cost his household money. He would have been financially better off staying exactly where he was. It feels counterintuitive, doesn't it? Working harder, accepting more responsibility, only to watch the majority of the reward dissolve. But, as I promised at the beginning of this video, the goal here isn't to leave you feeling frustrated. The goal is to show you that you don't have to just sit there and take it. Because while the system is designed to catch people who are doing nothing, it gives immense flexibility to those who are willing to be proactive. There are 3 highly effective, perfectly legitimate ways to pull yourself out of these traps. First, smart pension contributions. If your income is sitting at David's level of $110,000, you can make an intentional £10,000 net contribution, which is topped up to $12,500 gross in your pension, or a £10,000 salary sacrifice allocation into your workplace scheme. Because pension contributions lower your adjusted net income in the eyes of HMRC, your taxable base drops back exactly to below $100,000. You instantly reclaim your full personal allowance, escape the 60% trap entirely, and get to keep 100% of your childcare benefits. Second, salary wrap options. Speak to your employer about salary sacrifice structures. Instead of taking a cash bonus or a pay rise directly into your bank account, you can redirect that exact amount into non-cash benefits before tax is applied. Think electric vehicle leasing schemes or direct company pension allocations. This route is exceptionally tax efficient because it completely bypasses both income tax and employee national insurance. Third, gift aid optimization. If you frequently support registered charities, your donations can actively reduce your adjusted net income. Keeping meticulous track of your gift aid contributions and declaring them on your self-assessment can quietly pull you back below those critical threshold lines. The reality of the UK tax landscape right now is simple. The default settings are designed to cost you money. Protecting your wealth requires moving away from the default. Now, if you want to see exactly how these threshold freezes compare to other structures and see whether utilizing an ISA or pension makes the most sense for your wealth under the newest rules, click on the video showing on your screen right now. We break down the maths step by step so you can make the right play. See you there.